The Spokane police officer charged with vehicular assault faced a judge today. How he pleaded to the charges. And the August 4th primary is quickly approaching. Tonight we look at the race for U.S. Congress in Eastern Washington and how much cash the leading candidates have raised. Plus, Kootenai Health firing back at rumors swirling on social media about false positive COVID-19 tests. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Regina is off tonight. Kootenai Health is responding to rumors swirling on social media about false positive COVID-19 tests. The stories being shared claim that someone planned to get tested for the virus. The wait was too long and that person left only to get a letter saying they tested positive. They also claim these false positives are contributing to the rise in coronavirus cases in North Idaho. Kootenai Health said these claims are false and they offered some clarification. A spokesperson said the test results are not sent in the mail. People who get tested will be contacted by the doctor who ordered the test via phone. They only send letters on a, quote, very rare occasion if a person can't be reached by the phone after several attempts. They also said medical providers or testing facilities do not, quote, receive more money for positive test results. Kootenai Health urged people to be part of the solution by recognizing that secondhand stories may be fraudulent and contain fraudulent information. If you want to get tested for the coronavirus in North Idaho, you'll have to get a letter from a doctor's order first. The Panhandle Health District made the change after a surge in calls to their information hotline. The agency says they'll only write orders for coronavirus tests for people who are uninsured and don't have a primary care provider.
It got really time consuming. One day our clinicians had to leave the office and they were backlogged by 200 orders. So it became a real big strain.
With the surge in testing, the agency is receiving help from volunteers now working 7 days a week to try to get caught up. Spokane County saw one of the largest single-day spikes of coronavirus cases today. 98 new cases were reported in Spokane County today. That ties the largest single-day increase since the pandemic began. We're also learning of one new death today. According to the Spokane Regional Health District, 2 people in their 30s have now died from the virus in Spokane. The new increase today brings our total number of cases to 2,352. In other news tonight, today ballots were mailed out in Washington for the primary election on August 4th. That election will determine which 2 candidates move on to the November general election for positions from county commissioner all the way to U.S. Congress. The last 2 years have seen some hotly contested races in Spokane, but this election just seems milder. So our political reporter Casey Decker dug into the data to find out if that's the case.
I decided to focus on the biggest race in Eastern Washington this year, the race for Congress. Representative Kathy McMorris-Rodgers has 4 challengers this year, and as a metric of how intense this race is, I decided to look at how much money is being spent on it. So far this year, CMR has raised $2.3 million. The challenger with the most money raised, left-wing candidate Chris Armitage. He's raised roughly $60,000. David Wilson, who's challenged CMR twice before as an independent, is running again this year but as a Democrat. He's raised $21,000. So, is that normal? Not at all. For one, let's just compare it to CMR's last race in 2018. It was by far the most competitive election of her now 16-year tenure in Congress. By this time in 2018, Lisa Brown had raised over $2.4 million. McMorris-Rodgers herself a whopping $4.4. Now, that was a unique year. Brown was a much higher profile candidate than the Democrats who typically run for the seat. So let's look at 2016, which, like 2020, was an election year. CMR raised about $2.9 million by mid-July in 2016. At that time, Democrat Joseph Pekudis had taken in $128,000, and independent Dave Wilson $175,000. So certainly less than Lisa Brown, but more than the candidates for this year. In fact, if you look at every election since McMorris-Rodgers first won the seat, only twice before has the leading challenger raised this little money at this point in the calendar. The median amount raised at this point is nearly 3 times what Armitage has reported so far. So why is that? Why are Dems spending so little on this race this year? Well, there are a few likely reasons. For one, COVID-19. The pandemic has made it so many aspects of campaigning aren't physically possible. That means campaigns are spending less and therefore don't need to raise as much. And secondly, the candidates. Neither Armitage nor Wilson is an experienced Democrat with the kinds of connections that Lisa Brown had. They're trying to run more grassroots campaigns. And a third possible factor, the 2018 outcome. Democrats really gave it all they had in the midterms, and as a result, they came closer to beating CMR. But despite a nationwide wave of blue victories, they still couldn't topple her. That might have resulted in some donor fatigue, people just less willing to spend money on this race again. Casey Decker, KREM 2 News.
In other news tonight, 2 Bothell police officers were shot after a pursuit late Monday night. One officer, Jonathan Shoup, was killed. Another officer wounded. The Bothell police chief said Shoup and his partner were still in their patrol car when they were shot. A suspect is in custody and a judge ordered their bail held without bail. A charging decision is expected this Friday.
Is your true and correct name Michael Bruner?
Yes, Your Honor.
We acknowledge receipt of the state's information, waive a formal reading, and ask that the court enter pleas of not.
To count 1, vehicular assault, what is your plea?
Not guilty.
The Spokane police officer charged with vehicular assault pleaded not guilty to 2 counts today. Officer Michael Bruner is accused of crashing into another car back in March, injuring 2 people inside that car. It happened at the intersection of Lincoln and 5th. Court documents show Bruner was going 65 miles per hour just 3 seconds before the crash. The speed limit on that stretch of road is 30 miles per hour. Bruner was placed on administrative leave by the department, but as of this week, he's been laid off pending the outcome of the criminal case. The Spokane Police Department is warning of a phone scam asking for donations benefiting law enforcement and the families of law enforcement. SPD says an unknown man has been asking for donations through the mail or via credit card. SPD says they will never call you to ask for monetary donations over the phone, so if you get one of these phone calls, you are encouraged to call Crime Check at that number at the bottom of your screen. And just a reminder for everybody, today is tax day after the original April 15th deadline was pushed back because of the pandemic. Don't panic though if you need a little more time getting your return together. You can easily request an extension to October now. If you owe taxes, experts say you need to make an estimated payment now or you could face some penalties. If you're unable to pay the full amount owed, experts say try to pay something to reduce the balance, and you can also request a payment plan. Congress is planning to pass one more major economic relief bill over the next several weeks. The Senate will return from a recess on July 20th, and they'll start working on the next legislation. Meantime, over in the House, Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Tuesday that she's absolutely willing to delay or cancel their August recess in order to come to an agreement on additional economic relief for Americans. If Congress can't act, millions of Americans would suddenly lose the $600 payment per week in federal unemployment benefits that expires at the end of the month. Spokane Public Schools swore in their new superintendent today, Dr. Adam Swinyard. Previously, the Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Swinyard will now permanently replace Dr. Shelley Redinger with a 2-year contract. Dr. Redinger resigned late last month after accepting the superintendent job for Richland schools. She'd served as SPS superintendent for 8 years. The Idaho State Board of Education approved a grant program that would help school districts prepare for blended learning. The grant will make $3.8 million available to help students and teachers who don't have online access. It'll be up to each school district on how they plan to use that grant money. Board member Kurt Liebig estimates that 45,000 students do not have access to a computer or the internet right now at home. A new report found that reopening schools without taking the right measures may lead to a significant increase in coronavirus cases. The report comes from King County and the Institute for Disease Modeling. Using data from King County, the report found that Washington schools could reopen, but only with countermeasures in place. Also, if transmission of coronavirus is low in the community. Mask usage, physical distancing, hygiene, and grouping students by age are all necessary. According to the report, without countermeasures, the number of new cases could double over the first 3 months of the school year. Washington's deputy secretary for the Department of Health says, quote, reopening schools cannot be considered in isolation. What happens outside of schools is as important as what happens inside of schools. And for more information on heading back to school this fall, just text the word schools to 509-448-2000 and we'll send you a link with information directly to your phone. All right, let's talk about the forecast now. Today we made it into the 80s. Beautiful day across the inland Northwest today. Meteorologist Michelle Boss joining us. She's broadcasting from home. And Michelle, tomorrow is going to be even warmer than it was today.
That's right. Tomorrow we'll likely see temperatures in the upper 80s. 88 is as warm as we've been at the Spokane airport. Looks like we'll be around that warm tomorrow. But some 90s are finally in the forecast. Not for this weekend, though. You'll still get some cooler weather next week. It looks like it's going to be a hot one. Let's take a look outside at temperatures across the region right now. And they're pretty mild out there. 74 degrees in Spokane. We're about 5 degrees warmer at this time than we were last night at 11 o'clock. So mild night if you want to go check out the Comet. 65 in Coeur d'Alene. A little bit cooler out in Deer Park. 58 degrees and still almost 80 degrees in Moses Lake, 74 in Lewiston. Wind's not much of an issue right now, but do expect it to get pretty breezy tomorrow afternoon and early evening. Could see wind gusts 25 to 30 miles per hour from Spokane along that I-90 corridor all the way out to Moses Lake and even Wenatchee. So just be prepared for some breezy conditions. Satellite and radar indicating, of course, no rainfall out there and clear skies across much of the region. Here's a look at the next 12 hours. We'll see those temperatures drop down into the upper 50s and lower 60s under clear skies. Lots of sunshine tomorrow as those temperatures warm up into the upper 80s, but dry cold front comes through. That's going to knock our temperatures back for Friday and Saturday, low to mid 80s, but starting on Sunday is when the big warm up begins, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see those 90s by the start of next week.
All right, looks good all around. Michelle, we'll check back in with you later in the broadcast. Thank you. Still ahead, it's a claim floating all around social media. Was the coronavirus pandemic planned nearly a decade ago? Our Verify team fact checks this claim. And you may have seen your favorite celebrity on Twitter tweet something a bit strange today. A huge Twitter hack that netted nearly $114,000 worth of Bitcoin. More on that next.